Hello there, my name is Michael Upton. I'm the Head of Academic Portfolio at London Metropolitan University, responsible for the School of Art, Architecture and Design. Welcome to this half-hour session. I'm going to have my phone near me so I can keep myself to time. What I'm going to talk to you about today is the university, the school, the art school, give you some advice about portfolios and what to include in them, some more information about entry requirements here, and finally a little bit about what happens after you graduate, so some of our alumni successes. So start with the university. London Metropolitan University, as you can imagine, is based in London. It houses 10,000 students across 2 London campuses. One slightly north of the city, one right in the middle of the city, which is where the art school is based. And it's a learning community effectively of 6 schools covering a wide range of disciplines. So there are students learning to be lawyers, business people, pharmaceutical scientists, biomedical scientists, filmmakers, teachers, social workers, psychologists, so almost anything you can imagine inside this learning community. But across that community, including in the art school, there is a focus on the quality of teaching. So the people you're working with in the classroom, studios and workshops are teachers as well as researchers and practitioners. And there is a focus on employment opportunities, so degrees that get you into the workplace. And aside from that focus, we're a student-centred university, so supporting our learners not only through academic requirements, but also their personal needs, any support needs, language requirements, any pastoral support, counselling, whatever, to get you through that journey of university. And being a relatively large campus, we have a great range of social, sport, entertainment activities and so on. Clearly, we're not enjoying as much of that as we would usually, because we're in the middle of a pandemic like most of the world. I am pleased to say that our art school has kept teaching the workshop kind of lessons throughout most of the pandemic, which has been great for the students. So a little bit about the school. The School of Art, Architecture and Design is incidentally, the images I'm using are of the campus. That's our 2 buildings. It used to be a tea warehouse just to the east of the City of London. And there's the view from the buildings. The school was ranked 3rd in London for art in the Guardian University Guide in 2020. Domus magazine have twice called us one of the top 100 schools of art, architecture and design in Europe. 2017 was, I think, the last time they did that. 1,700 students on campus from foundation up to postgraduate and PhD level. And basically what we provide is excellent teaching in studios, workshops at a very central London location. This slide, I won't go through it all, but shows you the kind of disciplines we teach. So it's arts, including photography, architecture at all levels, and design, including sort of 3D, like fashion and textiles and furniture, interior design and architecture, and visual communications, which is graphic design, animation, illustration, and so on. So the full range of creative disciplines. I said we were student-centred, and we're very proud of our student successes. And while they're students, they have notable successes. We like to think so. So a few examples here. Anthony McConan, furniture and product design student, was selected for 100% Design, a big exhibition in the UK. Teddy Lena was shortlisted for the BP Portrait Awards. That's a professional painting competition. Angela Blazanovic from BA Photography won Best in Show at Free Range, which is a student show showing work from all of the universities in the country. So we're the kind of school that prides itself and nurtures students towards success. Our students are very active themselves. They run student societies like MAS at CAS, which is our architecture society, and students get involved in working to make the school a better place. So this alphabet here is a font that students designed to be used all through the buildings for the summer show. So we commissioned them to create something new. The staff supporting you on your degree here are practitioners, artists, designers, architects, fashion designers, makers, what have it, as well as being teachers. So they spend some of their time being, an art creative practitioner, some of the time working with students. So here are a few examples of those. Bob and Roberta Smith, who teaches fine art, is a well-known UK fine artist. Professor Peter St John was a curator of the British Pavilion at Venice last year, but more notably a couple of years before that, he won the Stirling Prize, the biggest prize you can win in architecture in the UK. Simone ten Hompel who teaches on 3D courses here, is a world-renowned expert in metal and silversmithing, and a former Jowood Prize winner. So these are accomplished people sharing their experiences with the students. And I think it's an interesting group assemble, a group of architects who are kind of a collective, lot of members. Two of their members teach an architecture here. Two other members are alumni of the school, and they actually won the Turner Prize a couple of years ago, which is the biggest prize you can get in UK art, which was quite controversial because they're architects winning a fine art prize. But I think it says a lot about how you have to have an expansive mind in the UK creative sector. So before I say a bit more about the school, just something about London. London is a fantastic place. It's a fantastic place to live anyway, because it's open to so many creative and cultural experiences, social experiences, from West End shows, galleries and art to, brilliant places to eat and hang out and street art, whatever. Great energy and experience. But when you come to be a student in London, you get something else. You get London, we like to think, as a kind of resource for your studies. It's a huge library, effectively. So this is where we are. That orange box there is the art school. We're at 10-15 minute walk at the most from the Thames, Tower Bridge, Tower of London, well-known landmarks, and then up here the City of London, again 10 minutes, maybe a bit less, walk from the school, which is the main financial district of London. So we're very centrally located, but those links link to what you do as a student. So lots of the projects you work on, lots of the experiences you have as a student will relate to what's going on in London. So that could be access to galleries and museums and collections, not just as a member of the public, but behind the scenes with the people who work there and curate and so on. Access to corporations and companies, so for work placements, for internships, which lots of our students do, but particularly for projects. So the live project briefs you will do on your courses will often be linked, almost always linked to something that's happening in London, whether that's working to help a major organisation like British Telecom redesign how they use their buildings, whether that's working on an architectural project that's master planning a part of the city, working with local council or whatever. So London's a playground for you as a student. It's not just an exciting place. It's both. So in terms of as a school, our facilities inside those buildings I've shown you include studios where most of your teaching and learning happen in groups. A lot of peer learning, reviewing each other's work. There's our art teachers working with students, trying to decide what they're going to hang in the summer show. Studios for making and creating, that's the architecture year one studio. Studios for more literal sense for photography and film and lighting, and facilities for making anything from small to huge objects. So whether that's analog making in wood, metal, print, textiles, or it's digital making, so thinking about things like 3D manufacture, rapid prototyping, construction and destruction technologies, and so on. So you'll spend your time in the studio and you'll go out to one of these other environments to do your kind of practical work. And making, when it's too big to fit inside the building, we take it outside, and there's our students working on a timber project they do every year, working on large scale constructions. And there are facilities for making film, music, sound, Foley recording, recording artists, and so on. And not technically a facility, but a nice thing to have is a roof garden on top of our building in the middle of the London skyline where students hang out and work. So supporting you in all these spaces, as well as the academic staff I already talked about, there are a series of technicians who will induct you and support you into using all these new techniques and technologies you might not have experienced before while you are a student. But beyond those, like that formal offer, the student Students benefit here from a host of other things, including a projects office, which is an office that enables students to work on real life commissions. Projects or competitions, again, often in London, that students can work on while as part of their studies, but which will be change the real world. So the images here are of outdoor teaching spaces, interior design students did on a project with an education authority, and those went into practice. So they're being used now. Children in schools are using them, and they are a student project. So we like to make it real for our students. You will go on field trips all over the world. These images are from I think Venice and Sao Paulo in Brazil. But depending on what you're studying and the focus of that study, there is often travel. Clearly, that's limited at the moment by the big pandemic that's affecting all of us. We improve students' professionalism by having particular weeks dedicated to it. Making a Living Week, which we hold every year, is a week where we invite businesses in, alumni, design agencies to talk about their experiences, look at your portfolio CVs, give you advice how to get a job. We run a week called Celebration Week every year, where students present their work in progress to a panel of critics from industry. So these are experts, from the worlds of design, art, architecture, often very senior people giving a bit of their time. You present your work to them, they give you some feedback, and before you hand it in, you've had a voice that's outside the school informing what you do. It's a great week every year. And during that week, we have our Project Red fashion show as well. And all manner of things happen. We have installations off-site. That's our students in this image here at the Tate Turbine Hall, a well-known gallery, of course, working on an installation project. We have exhibitions of student and staff work. We run events, not only our own events, but events as part of festivals like London Festival of Architecture, Clerkenwell Design Week, London Design Festival. So students have a chance to show their work in these big contexts. And there are public lectures where experts and researchers talk about their work online and on campus for students, and we produce publications. There are performances regularly on campus or at exciting locations outside by our students, and your time as a student with us finishes with a summer show in every June where work is exhibited to the public. About 2,500 people come to the private view. Runs usually for about 2 weeks. It's a great opportunity for our students to launch themselves into the wider world. So I'm just going to have a quick check of the time to make sure I'm on track, which I think I am just about. So I'm going to talk now, having given you a whistle-stop tour of our school, and I hope you get a chance to look at the website or even visit someday and get a better sense of it. So I'm going to talk to you now a bit about portfolio. So what is a portfolio? Well, you're studying art or design or creative subjects already. You have some sense of what it is, but I'm going to give you, a very precise definition from our point of view at least. So I think portfolio is an edited selection of your creative work, demonstrating your potential to succeed in the course. And those words are carefully chosen. You're not expected to demonstrate you're already an architect or an interior designer, or a particularly undergraduate level, or a fashion designer, but show you have the potential to get there. So it's showing you can do well in the course. So we'll use work from your previous study, the courses you've been doing, but also work you've created independently, because what we're hoping, what I imagine all art schools are hoping to see from students is, they love creating, making, exploring the world through their creative processes, not just you went to school and you were taught something and you had to do it, but you really wanted to. So that has to be in there somewhere. And of course, the portfolio can be physical or digital, so it can be the big A1 folder you're carrying around on a train. But for you as an international student, and certainly for all students at the moment, they tend to be digital, so they are supplied to us in a digital format. So what should be in a portfolio? Well, it clearly varies depending on the level of study. But typically, a postgraduate, I'll say a bit less about the postgraduate portfolios, because they're a bit more straightforward, because you've done an undergraduate degree already. You're applying for MA Interior Design, say, you've done a degree in interior design or architecture or 3D design, and you'll have a portfolio that shows degree level work. So that's, and you've already been working on a portfolio throughout your course for that purpose in a way. But what I'm going to say about undergraduate will apply to you as well, to give you a sense of why it's important to have work from outside your program, for example, and the kind of things we like to see. So undergraduate portfolio will include work from your school or college or high school or foundation course. There's less need for it to be subject specific. So we include finished work, so finished pieces, but also images of finished pieces, and also experimental and developmental work. Kind of tell a story of your projects and how you got from A to B, how you went from the idea or the brief or the thought to the finished piece of work. So there'll be a variety of media in a portfolio, so not just painting or not just drawing, not just 3D, not just portfolio. It'll be relevant to your subject of study. So clearly if you're applying for BA photography, you will have photography in your portfolio. But it's good to see other things as well, some drawing, some 3D, some other ways of looking at the world. And certainly for most courses, we like to see a big range of things. And it's not just technical work we want to see, but your creative process and experiments, even where you went wrong. So portfolio can always begin with drawing. In fact, art, architecture, design, all creativity begins in a way with drawing, sketches. So we want to see your sketchbooks as well as your finished work, finished paintings or sculptures or whatever. We want to see how you jotted down your ideas. How the sketchbook is kind of your a kind of portal from a bridge between the real world, immediately experienced, and your creative practice. So how you jotted those ideas down when you were out and about, when you were sitting in your room or whatever. So lots of drawing is important. So that could be, little sketches and scribbles and doodles, that drawing, exploration of the world around you. And we've all been very, limited in a way in the world around us lately. So maybe you've reflected on your home and your immediate environment, or the place you're working or your family are working in this lockdown period. But sketches that show you're understanding the world and thinking about it. There may be sketches you've taken before you did a painting, a study of the base of a tree, for example, as you can see here, before you went on to paint it, illustrations from nature, then perhaps went on to inform a textile design or a pattern. But everything starts with those drawings, so we want to see your sketchbooks. Your drawings might be maps of ideas or journeys that you've been on. They may be really experimental marks about time or space, just capturing a feeling, or they may be more technical. But include drawing in your portfolio is what I hope I'm getting you to. And I'm just stopping here because this slide shows work by Leonardo Da Vinci, of course, is the most famous artist who ever lived. But just so you can see, it wasn't just about finished work for him, but he was constantly sketching ideas. These were his developmental ideas for a flying machine. I don't think it took off, but you can see the annotations down the side there and so on. So seeing someone's creative thoughts playing out is really quite important. Or here's an example of a variety of images, reflections of the same place during nature, leading up to a final work. So that developmental work is really important. In your portfolio, we'd expect to see, possibly from, depending on what you've done in school or college, work such as painting, still lives, where you can show not only your technical ability, but how you compose and how you see space and objects related to each other. Drawings that explore proportion, anatomical drawings, or life studies looking at the body, that you've thought about proportional accuracy and so on in your drawings that show how you've looked at light and how it falls on materials, experiments with light and shade. I'm not saying your portfolio has to have all of these things in it. I'm just going to give you some thoughts about how wide you can go with drawing. If you're applying for a fine art, you may have painting in there, exploring the quality and nature of paint as much as the finished work, patterns for graphics students and textile design students are important. So have you got examples of where you've developed shapes, thought about how colours work with each other? And again, using in your workbooks or your work, collages is a great way of communicating. I'm sure many of you have done these on your courses, but as a way of using photographs or magazines or physical objects to explore the world, collage is a great way of showing how you worked through an idea before you got to a finished work, because it's a way of assembling thoughts. Have you worked on school and college so far on collaborative projects where you've had to imagine something together? Have you had to negotiate whose piece went where, worked in sort of shared creative process? Interesting to see that. Have you exhibited at all and put work up on the walls? We'd like to see images of that. So it's not just about the work, but the context in which it's shown. As a photography student, you obviously show photography in your portfolio, but show experimental photography. If you tried making a pinhole camera and using it, or experimenting with just shooting from the hip and not using your eyes, show the photographs that went wrong on your contact sheet, the ones you weren't sure about, and how you chose your final one. So talk us through that process. And photography, I have to say, is a great medium to show whatever you're playing. It could be used for your studies, for your paintings, for fine art, but used to understudy space for architecture students and interior designers. So include photography, whatever you're thinking about studying. Show your photography can be used to document your work in progress on 3D work. If you're applying for a course that involves working in 3 dimensions, like fashion, interiors, architecture, jewelry, furniture, product, show that you've experimented with materials. It might just be with cardboard, but it could be with clay, it could be with anything, but show that you've thought about the limitations of materials and what shapes you can make with them. So work like sculptures, surreal objects that you photographed, or more literal and functional ones. So here's a piece of furniture here that a foundation student made. So hopefully I'm getting across to you that what we like to see in a portfolio is a range of media that show you've explored the world, as well as a technical ability. So if you're thinking about space, have you thought about how that space is used, created some sort of study and illustrated it, for example? If you're doing a portrait of yourself, have you thought about using different media, different approaches to delivering and communicating that? So I'm going to show you an example of a portfolio just after I've talked about these subject-specific requirements. But one question we asked a lot is, do portfolio requirements vary by subject? Well, yes, they do, because you're expected to demonstrate, your suitability for that course, but not as much as you might think. Because as you'll see, I asked a few tutors what they like to see from architecture. You're not necessarily expected to submit an architectural portfolio, it says here. So it's concepts and ideas, a range of material, processes and techniques, and exploration of concepts. So there's no need to have designed a full building to be an architecture student. Yes, you might have done that, and that's great, but it's more you're using those different media to explore the world in 3 dimensions. Similarly, in fine art, tutors like you to demonstrate creative thinking ability, investigation, the ability to develop a project. And also they highlight in their request, include your coursework, but also include self-initiated work too. So that's really important. I've said that already, but include work you did outside of school or college. In fashion, you don't have to have designed a fashion garment. You may not have had the means to do that or the opportunity to do that. So show some sense of, what takes you towards that. So that's drawing, that's thinking in 3D, thinking about materials, thinking about fabrics. But you don't have to have made the final garment. So again, similar to architecture, it's the techniques that will take you there. So what format should an online portfolio take? Well, at the moment, we're talking mostly about digital portfolios. So we'd expect things to be on PowerPoint, PDF, or increasingly people are supplying a web link where there's a nicely organized website where we can see their work. That will be uploaded for us into our applicant portfolio, where the admissions tutor from the course can review it. But a couple of things one thing not to do is no loose files. So don't just put up a load of images, say 40 images, JPEG 1, JPEG 2, because it's completely confusing, impossible to understand. Have them inside something like PowerPoint or PDF or a website. Pay attention to limits on file sizes. We tend to want 10 megabytes at the most. Other colleges may be different, but make sure you're within those constraints, and make sure it's possible to orientate yourself to the work. So some sort of contents or description or guide, so you know what you're looking at. Because especially if you're not having a face-to-face interview, the portfolio's got to speak for itself. So I'm going to show you an example, if I can. Now I just have to come out of PowerPoint for a minute. Of a portfolio by a student called Tiarava. So their full portfolio is here. I'm going to skip through most of it because we haven't got a great deal of time, but you can see they began with, so I'll just open that a bit better, some sketch work. You can see their drawing experiments, printing experiments, and photography. And certainly serious explorations using cardboard models into 3D and then photographing them. So you can see different ideas being explored to these different media. But I want to talk in particular about this project here, where they've been looking at, just do it further on, looking at the ducts and ventilation ducts of buildings. So they've done a photographic project where they'd photographed these air conditioning ducts. Done some sketches based on it and some ideas and some thoughts. They've shown some drawing. They continue to work through these thoughts, but they started to introduce some materials. They created, using some actual piping, a kind of light and a light bulb, a kind of sculpture they could wear. They continued to work with this material, creating sculptures, an installation, and then finally proposing a huge, which they didn't have to make, kind of public art that would use lots of these sculptures. So you can see from those initial photographs of ventilation shafts in buildings, their sketches, their photographs, their sculptures, they came up with this project in the end. So that's what I'm talking about when I say you want that journey that you go on with the student. So in terms of entry requirements beyond your portfolio, there's country-specific guidance on our website, but you'll be expected to show your school and college grades are what we want, as well as your portfolio. There's an English language requirement in all courses. Sometimes your school or college diploma will have got you to that standard. Again, it'll be on our website, but overall it's IELTS 6, minimum 5.5 in all categories, English language requirement for our courses. I want to just finish by talking really briefly about a few of our alumni, because your journey begins at university with your portfolio. You have all this experience at university. What happens next? And so these are just a few people who I've been following and I really like. So Yinka Elori he studied furniture and product design, but he now designs products like crockery, designs furniture, but he designs public buildings as well. So he designed the Picture Gallery Pavilion, which won an award in 2019. So he took his practice of making furniture and scaled it up. Nick Hill, who studied graphic design here, went into motion graphics and then is creating characters for the Marvel universe, which is fantastic. Alessia Bucci, who studied interior design, she works for Starbucks, designing restaurants all over the world, but she designed the first Starbucks in Italy, which is a big thing because they like their coffee there. They weren't sure about Starbucks, which is a fantastic space in Milan. And Gatti Rhodes were a group of 3 architecture students here who formed their own practice. They went on to win the Young Architects of the Year award a couple of years ago. Very successful, one of the very successful practices that have come out of studying here. So that journey for us, we stay in touch with these alumni. We invite them back to talk to our students. So as a school, it's not just about you when you're a student. It's about keeping in touch with you after you've gone as well, and sharing those successes with you. So that's all I'm going to say. Thank you very much for listening. I hope it's been useful. You'll be able to find out more about our school from your agent, from our University International office. I put my email here. If any of you wants to email me with an informal inquiry, feel free to do so. And you can follow our school on the hashtag London Met Arts and at London Met Arts there on most social media platforms. So thank you very much for listening, and enjoy the rest of your event.